Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Authors and Agents with Rose Quinn. I have a lovely literary agent on the podcast with me today who answers query questions for me and gives, good insight into what she's looking for and, her experience in the publishing industry. I have Alexandra Levick with me from Writer's House. Sadly, I do not have a favorite book of the week this week. I was reading a book that I didn't finish, which is so sad. I usually really try to push through and at least get to the end so I can, because sometimes books redeem themselves, even if the beginning starts a little slow. But I just have so many books on my list that I'm having to be a little bit more choosy. And I made it about a quarter of the way in, and it was just too slow for me, which was sad because the blurb seemed like it would be right at my alley. So I don't have a favorite book of the week, but cross your fingers, the books I'm reading right now will be good, and one of them will be featured on next week's episode. So let's just go ahead and get to know Alexandra. So Alexandra, will you tell me what drew you to publishing and becoming a literary agent?
Yeah, so I think I really just love the opportunity to kind of exercise my creative muscles as well as my business sense. I'm definitely a really competitive person, and I really love getting into the nitty-gritty negotiations. But I also really love coming up with creative solutions to tough problems, both editorially and in my deals. My mom is a first grade teacher, and my dad is a financial planner. And they were both trying to get me to do the things that they do when I grew up, quote unquote. And I like to think that I met them in the middle.
Well, that's awesome. I love, and I think that agents kind of get the best of all of that, right? Like you say you're competitive, so you kind of get to work on that competitive side of getting the best deal and, getting things to the top. And then also you get to read amazing books and be the warrior for them to get them where they, where the author wants it to be. It's pretty awesome.
Exactly. I love being that defender.
Yes.
I am always ready to kind of take up my shield and sword and fight for my authors. I think that's really, really important.
Super important. And that's, a wonderful part of that agent-author relationship that you want to have.
Yes.
Well,
definitely.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about when your love for books began.
I've been thinking a lot about this, and I honestly can't remember a time where books weren't a huge part of my life. I've always been a huge reader. I used to honestly get in trouble for trying to hide books under the dinner table and for reading way too late with a flashlight. I remember I used to stuff my towel under the door so my mom wouldn't see the light.
Oh gosh.
I was so desperate to keep reading the stories I was reading. And she would always come in and be like, "Allie, for the love of God, please go to bed." So you could say it's always been a problem.
Yes, I'm with you. It's always been a problem for me, too. I recently ran into, what my family, we all went camping, and one of my dad's good friends went with us, and he saw me sitting in a chair, reading a book. He's like, I see nothing has changed here. He's like, still with the book always in your hand. I'm like, well, at least I'm consistent, right?
I remember when I, moved into my dorm in college, one of the first things that made me a little anxious was I didn't have all my books with me. And I feel having, being surrounded by books is kind of a comfort blanket to me.
Definitely.
So, now that I'm a grown-up, they're just all over, everywhere. I have bookshelves everywhere, hidden stacks, wherever you want, I have them. And they're all very organized and neat, but I just need them around to feel comfortable and safe. I don't know what that is.
I think that's just a good thing. I mean, books are so comforting, and it's so nice to have an escape, right? I mean, especially in the world we live in right now with this year and everything that's going on, it is so nice to pick up a book and be like, okay, for however long I'm reading this, I am just gonna ignore everything crazy around me and read this book.
Exactly. And it feels, I don't know, I found myself during this kind of quarantine pandemic time turning to books that I've already read. And I think that has a lot to do with knowing the ending and knowing how things are turning out. Psychologically, I see what I'm doing here.
That's a very comforting way to go, for sure.
Trying my best.
Yes. Well, awesome. I'm glad that you love books and it took you to where you are right now, so you can help be a defender of books for your clients.
Yes. I want that on a sticker or a button.
Yes. Well, let's get into some query questions, because I know people that listen to this love to hear that, you as an agent, your feedback on these questions. But my first question for you would be, if you think that queries need to stick to the I was putting two words together there. Do you think that queries need to stick to the specified formula? Now, that's not like your agency's submission guidelines, because those should be followed, right? But this is like the basic formula of like not being gimmicky, including the who, what, why, and the stakes, and then the information about the book.
I honestly hate to say this, but I do think it's helpful.
Yeah.
Particularly workflow-wise, it's just more helpful to know exactly what I can expect and which boxes you're ticking and which boxes I have some confusion over. Mm-hmm. At times when people get too creative in their formatting, it really just trips me up rather than getting me excited. For instance, when people write queries from the point of view of their main character, more often than not, I'm confused about who is writing me and why.
You're like, is this some sort of weird thing going on?
Is this your name?
Right. I can totally understand that, though, because, you look through so many queries. I can't even fathom having to look through all of them and kind of judge what's going on. And I think the idea behind people doing things like that, like writing the query from the point of view of their character in their novel, is to like make it stand out, right? But I think it makes it stand out.
I hate saying don't make it stand out that way, because that's not what I mean. It's really about if you were applying for a job, you wouldn't, I don't know, write a celebrity, I don't know, you wouldn't write a celebrity endorsement for yourself and apply that way.
Yeah, no.
That's not how you would do it. And I feel like it's a similar kind of weird
Yeah.
It's just not what we're expecting. It doesn't allow us to go through as quickly and efficiently and make sure those story elements that we're looking for are there. Because often the ones that are written so creatively are missing more of the meaty aspects that we're looking for. The who, what, why, how,
right,
etc.
Yeah, I think that is definitely good information and feedback, just to help those who are querying, that it's better to give the agent what they're going to expect instead of giving them something jarring that's going to make them be way more confused than they would have been if you had just stuck to the formula.
And I think that's what it comes down to. It results in more confusion than excitement.
Yeah. And that's not good with a query. You don't want to be confused. No, we don't want that. Well, besides that, what would be your number one query no-no?
So I think there are a lot of things that can go wrong in queries just because there are so many moving parts. But I think the biggest one for me is sending multiple projects all at once, which I don't ask for and really don't want. I've gotten 10 to 15 emails in a row from the same person and been
goodness.
oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah.
Or just not taking the time to research what I'm looking for. So often I get books about crime, which I am really absolutely the last person you want reading that book. I will not be your best advocate for it, I promise. And that's really frustrating to me because I have to be jolted in reading it.
Yeah.
And then spend time, passing on it. And also I very clearly state in my requirements, please don't send these kinds of books to me. I'm not going to be the agent that advocates best for you in this scenario. And that's frustrating. But other than that, like, mistakes happen. Names get changed out. There are typos. Please don't stress over those things. That is not really something that I care about in the grand scheme of things. It just doesn't matter.
I think, what I get from what you're saying is also, like, your pet peeve is also, like, when people don't do their research, when maybe they're, like, blast querying people too, like.
Exactly. Like, I think the thing is that it bothers me when people don't respect my time too.
Yeah.
Because they're not only wasting my time, but they're wasting their own time at that point, because they may as well just be querying people who are actually interested in whatever subgenre that I don't represent is.
Right.
It's much better for them to be approaching the people who actually like the subject and aren't going to be like, oh my God, please no.
Yeah, like,
take it away.
Yeah. They're not going to be like, like rolling their eyes like, oh gosh, I just got this query.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to waste anyone's time. I don't want to waste anyone's energy. Querying is so hard. Yes. And it takes so much time and energy. Like, the best thing you can do for yourself is do that research and make sure you're using your energy wisely.
Yeah, I think that is super important. And I think people, I mean, I know I have felt this at times when querying, but, it can be such a stressful, like, anxiety-filled experience, right? So, like, there is
oh my God, yes.
Yeah, there's, like, a desire to be like, oh my gosh, get it over with. Like, send out the queries and be done, right? But it is so much more worthwhile to take the time to do the research, to send it out in batches. It's not what my impatient self would want to do, but it's better for me and better for the agents, right? Like, because then I could find somebody who I could make a connection with somehow, and that just is better for everybody.
Exactly. And when I talk about querying, I often go back to the way that you have to apply to colleges now, where everyone has their own sub-application that you have to do and all their own questions that you have to answer. And I know it is the most frustrating thing in the entire world. I am well aware, and I'm honestly so sorry that that's the way it is at this point. But, like, taking the time, making sure you're doing it correctly, making sure you're approaching the right people will only end up benefiting you more.
Definitely.
There is a much higher success rate if you're not spending time and energy on people who don't even sell the kinds of books you're working on.
Yeah. It's just pointless for everybody in that respect.
And, like, we don't want that.
No.
Like, no, spend your time better. Like, we can do better things with this time. You deserve better than that.
Yes. Well, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Another question I have is about first pages that you might read from people when they're querying. What things in the first pages will make you stop reading?
Yeah, so one of the things, and I'm just going to say this is my own personal pet peeve. One of the things I don't love is when a character introduces themselves in a way that doesn't give us any insight into their voice or character. I think there are ways to do this that tell us so much about the character. And one of my favorites that I always return to is Alice Sebold's The Lovely Bones.
Oh, I love that book.
And the first line is, my name was Salmon, like the fish, first name Susie. And, like, the verb tense there, the introduction of this information just tells us so much in so few words.
Yeah.
And it's immediately intriguing. Like, that past tense, you're immediately like, why isn't that your name anymore?
Right.
And I just think that's so compelling. It's so much more compelling than me saying, my name is Allie Levick, I'm a literary agent. And that being the first sentence. Like, that's not that interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry to myself.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, let's talk about positives about queries. What's some of, like, your favorite things to see in a query? What gets you really excited?
honestly, my favorite thing is just great writing that fits into one of the categories. Queries themselves aren't that big of a make or break for me, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
I often tell people my little secret is that I skim through queries and then read the pages. I'm not reading queries in depth first. I really just want to see if I connect to the author's voice and connect to the story itself. And then if I do, I go back and read that query.
Yeah.
In depth, line by line, making sure that the story seems to track and make sense and that there aren't huge plot holes that I can already spot. But it's just the great writing that I'm looking for. That is the thing above everything else.
And, I think to that point, like, querying is such a different type of writing, right? Than writing an 80,000 word novel. So I think that could almost be comforting for some people. Not that people, like, shouldn't put effort into their queries, right? Like, you want it to be as good as it can be. But I think, like, I struggle, and I have always struggled at query writing because it is very, like, a salesy type of writing.
Yes.
And I always, like, want to put everything in it, but there's only 250 words, right? Like, you can't fit everything in there. So that's comforting and definitely helps, with the reminder of, like, it really is about your pages and about your novel. So yeah, your query needs to be good to get people to want to read it, but your first pages, and I mean your novel, should be in the best shape possible before you're starting to send any of these out.
Exactly, and that's really why I do what I do, because querying and actually writing are two completely different skills.
Yes.
We can talk about how to help you write in a way that makes it sales pitchy, intriguing to readers, etc. Your publisher will help you with that. Your agent can help you with that. They can help you craft that pitch. But what I can't do is completely rewrite your entire novel so that it's compelling.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not something I can do. So the queer letter is important, but it isn't this end-all be-all that everyone has made it out to be for so long. Yeah. I really hate that.
I hate that too, because there is so much emphasis and, like, anxiety around the query letter because of that idea. Exactly.
Like, I just feel like querying is such a vulnerable process to begin with. Just presenting your work or pitching your work to someone is so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I really give people credit. I don't know that I could do it, honestly, with my own writing. Like, it's just terrifying to me. But making, spelling errors or things like that be, the thing that sets someone off and puts it in the reject pile, I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that's a fair assessment of anyone's work.
I agree.
I make spelling errors all the time.
Right. I agree with you there, and I think, while it's not fair to do that, I think as an author, somebody sending out queries, that's why sending them out in smaller batches can be so helpful, because it gives you more time to catch those, right? Like, if you send out 50 queries at one time and then you come back and you're like, oh no, it had a spelling error in it, like, you can't send it back to those agents and be like, hey, just kidding, sorry, like, I fixed a typo.
Some people do that. Some people will re-email and say, hey, there is one spelling error.
Oh,
I'm
no.
always like, oh my God, please don't feel like you have to resend an email for one spelling error. It is totally okay. No one will even notice it, honestly.
No. If it was really that small to where they didn't notice it, like, it's probably not that big of a deal. Exactly.
Well, it's about the writing. That's what it's about.
Definitely. And let's see. So, I mean, I feel like you already kind of gave a tip, like, it's about the writing, but I'd love to know any other tips or golden rules you have for authors who are querying right now.
Yeah, I think my biggest one would be just not to let rejections get in your head. Try to learn from each one keep crafting, keep working, keep reading. But this field is so subjective.
Yeah.
And it's really important not to let other people's no's get in the way of your one eventual yes. Like, please don't let that stop you from finding that person who's going to say yes to you. It's so important.
It's very important. And I think, it can be so hard to get over those no's and to grow that thick skin as you go through this process. But, I was chatting with someone else about this recently, and I think, unfortunately, part of it is like all timing, right? It's all timing and sometimes chance, like who you're sending it to, what time of year, what other books they have on their list. Everything kind of needs to like end up in perfect alignment for things to happen. And that's like so hard because don't we all want to control this process and like what happens? But you do sort of have to like let go of that and just realize that like agents aren't saying no just to be mean or because they hate books. Like, of course they love books, right? But you do just need to be patient and wait for that one right defender of your book.
Exactly. And I think the really important thing to remember is that when I pass on something, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's not for me, that I am not the best person to advocate for this work.
Yeah.
I am not making any kind of call on how good your writing is. That's just not what I'm doing. I'm simply saying I'm not the best person for this book at this time. That's it. Yeah.
And I think I will say that I have seen things where people like, that's what people really struggle with is really believing that from agents, right? Like they...
I know, it's tough because every no can feel like you're not good enough.
Yes.
But that's not necessarily the case.
No.
And I think that's really, really, really important to remember and hold on to throughout the querying process. It's important to remain confident and, keep your eye on the prize that you love your work.
Right.
You love writing and you want to share it with the world, and you will keep working and keep trying at it until you can make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, part of me has interviewed numerous authors on this podcast who all have had very different journeys. Yes, some have had quicker journeys to getting agents and getting their book published, whereas some have had 3 agents and books never sell, or books sell and then never get to publication and all this stuff. So it's publishing is like the worst industry for people who are impatient, but I feel like a lot of us end up here wanting to have things published. So it is just, I think it's so important too for people to share their experiences and stories about it, because then if somebody else doesn't know like what they're going through, if anybody else has gone through it, they can start to feel like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. Like this is somewhat normal that like I'm having this issue.
Exactly. There's such a wide range of experiences, and I think it's so important to see that range.
Yes.
But to also know that you should feel comfortable keeping your eyes on your own paper and not comparing your journey to someone else's.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. No 2 journeys are exactly the same.
Yes.
No 2 books are the same. It just doesn't happen that way. So finding some comfort in the fact that no one else's experience is going to mirror yours exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because that can be a very slippery slope too. Because,
oh, yes.
Because, comparison is such a hard thing to deal with in our day and age, especially with social media and all of that.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, so, it's helpful to see that you're not alone in aspects of your journey, but also not look at somebody else's journey and be like, well, why am I not there, Everybody.
Or what is wrong with, I think it gets problematic when it's what is wrong with me,
yeah,
that I am not there.
Yeah.
And it's not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of your self-worth. And that is so, so, so important to remember.
Yes, definitely. That's very important. That's the golden rule right there.
Yes.
Well, I'd love to know what else you look for in an author. So you've, read their query, their pages, their manuscript, and you're on that call with them and trying to get to know them a little bit better. What are some things that you're looking for as you chat with them?
I think on the call, I'm looking for someone who vibes with my editorial vision for the story. My goal in editing someone's work is not to make it more my own vision for the story.
Yeah.
It's to clarify their vision for their story, and make it the best version that they could possibly imagine of their own book. I don't want to add my own feelings or hopes or dreams for it. I want it to be the best they can envision, like the most crystallized version they could hope for. That's really what I'm looking for. And I don't want to really work with someone who doesn't vibe with my editorial vision, because I don't want to lead them astray when their book may be better served elsewhere,
right.
Honestly. I don't think that's responsible of me to do. And I'm also looking for someone who feels like a committed partner in their business. Someone who's looking to innovate and grow, to adapt to the changing space and market, and really someone who's in it for the long haul. I'm looking for someone who really wants to be working on book 2, book 3, book 4, etc. down the road.
I think that's awesome, and good things for people who are starting this process and maybe don't know, how that all looks. But I think it is important to realize too, like, that call and the agent relationship is two ways. So like, you're looking for someone who's vibing with you and all that, and they're looking at you and kind of interviewing you as well on that call.
Exactly. And too, with kind of the vibing editorial vision, I think that's so important, because I do think it's really important to understand that there is an inherent power imbalance between an agent and an unpublished author.
Yeah.
And I would never want to sway someone into my editorial vision because they want an agent so badly.
Yes.
That leads them to make their book something it isn't. Or something they didn't want it to be. Yeah. That is really, I don't want that for anyone.
No.
I want everyone to create the book, the most crystallized, clear, strongest version of the book they set out to create, not someone else's Frankenstein's monster amalgamated version of that. That's not what we want.
No, that's not what we want. And I think, that serves as a good reminder too. Like, I feel like getting an agent feels to writers like, oh gosh, I made it. I have an agent. It's all going to be like smooth sailing from there. But it's not. I mean, there's so much more after getting an agent. So to remind yourself, like, okay, I want an agent who, like you said, like, doesn't have a completely different view of what my book, is or should be, and to stick with that, but also recognize, like, you're in it for the long haul and need somebody who's going to really support you with your vision throughout the process.
Exactly. And someone who's going to be in it with you good times and bad.
Yeah.
Not a fair weather agent. That's
Definitely
not helpful to you as an author.
No.
And it's not helpful to me as an agent either, to just have, a fair weather client. It's really a partnership, and an agent is working for you to make sure that you are best served in the publishing business.
Definitely.
And it's a business. I think that's also a part that people often forget.
Yes. Yeah, it is. You take it from being, because writing you do by yourself. It's a very solitary activity. And, and then to to bring it into querying and agenting is like you are bringing it into a business, and you have to kind of change your mindset about your book and kind of just your expectations of all of it as you go into that process.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I have just a couple questions left for you, but I would love for you to share with me a little bit about what's on your manuscript wish list right now, just some things you're really excited about getting in your inbox.
Yeah, so I work everywhere: picture book, middle grade, young adult, and adult. I'm really, really hunting for middle grade right now, and particularly middle grade horror. It's just an evergreen space for me. I love spooky middle grade. I always have. I always will.
The best.
I don't love super murdery books, so please don't send those to me. But everything else, you're good to go. For author illustrators in the picture book space, I love stories with a healthy dose of humor and heart that give you the belly laughs, but also you kind of end with that awe moment. In YA, I'm really open. I love any and all subgenres of YA. YA is definitely my comfort zone. I would really, really love a good twist on a space story. I'm absolutely obsessed with Erin Bowman's book Contagion.
Oh, yeah.
And I really enjoyed the Netflix reboot of Lost in Space. So I'm on the hunt for my space story.
Send all space stories to you that are YA.
Yes. And in adult, I'm really in for the weird and speculative. And particularly for adults, I have much more literary taste. I would really, really love to see more horror, and more horror from writers who are marginalized identities, who have marginalized backgrounds. I feel like so often the horror space is dominated by cis white hetero dudes who like use female bodies as an inciting incident for the story, and that is not what I'm about. I do not want that. So just new takes in horror are really, really exciting to me.
Definitely.
And two, I'll just say I'm really not the right agent for someone writing specifically about a marginalized identity if they're not coming from that identity.
Right.
So like a white writer writing about being Black in America as a POV character, as a main character, that's just, I'm not about that. There are too many people who have not gotten a seat at the table yet for folks to be doing that.
Definitely.
So please no.
Yeah, please don't try and just ride the wave, because it's happening right now, you know?
Yes.
Allow those people to do it. Well, wonderful. I hope that, you know, you get some good queries and you find your space novel and some more good horror.
Thank you. Space. New space.
Yes, space. Well, I have just one final question for you. I've been told, like every single time I ask it, that it's the hardest question I ask. So I'd love to know what your favorite book is right now. This isn't your favorite book of all time, because that's ridiculous, but just a book you've read recently that you really loved.
So this is a really hard question.
I know.
I will give you that. It's always so hard for me to think about any kind of answer that is narrowed down to one thing.
You can give me two if you can't narrow it down.
Absolutely obsessed with the Love, Sugar, Magic series by Anna Mariano. Oh my God, I love that series so much. I think it is genius. It makes me so happy. Like, those books make me positively gleeful. They're just everything I love. And I don't think I've ever flipped a last page and been glowing more as like a human than those books. So go buy them. They're amazing.
Yeah, they sound amazing. I just looked it up and it sounds like something I would love too.
They're so good.
Great. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today and giving me some really good, tips and feedback on, queries and just letting, me and my listeners get to know you as a person.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Authors and Agents with Rose Quinn. If you could please rate and review this podcast wherever you have found it, that would be amazing and make my day. If not, if you could post about it on Instagram or Twitter. Tell your friends. Tag me at Rose Quinny, QUINNY. I love to see your guys' posts about it. And I have some great interviews to finish off the year for you. So wait for an episode next Friday.